Everyone, and welcome to the Evolve with Emily Show YouTube channel. The best way to support the show on this YouTube channel is to subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment, and or share it with a friend. I hope that you guys enjoy this episode, and whichever way you choose to support the show, I just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys so much. I hope that today's message and episode brings some bit of positive change to your life. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Evolve with Emily Show. I am your host, Emily Hayden, and for today's episode, I am bringing on one of my smartest friends. He is a former aerospace engineer. He actually contributed to projects sitting on the surface of Mars, orbiting Jupiter, and slated to carry the next generation of next astronauts to space. So he holds extensive experience in human optimization through the design of nutrition, training, and introspective practices. After an awakening to a lifelong struggle with depression, it actually set a fire in him to start something that is now called Cured Nutrition, which a lot of you guys have probably heard of by now. He is on mission to enable others to live life at their fullest potential. He's changing the narrative around cannabis and creating a future that holds companies to the highest integrity. You guys, today, please welcome the CEO of Cured Nutrition, Joseph Sheehey. Welcome to the show.
Emily, thank you for that introduction. Holy shit. Like, that's really humbling. And I really appreciate that intro. It really means a lot. And thank you for having me here.
Of course. I actually did not know the thing about NASA until I started doing a little bit more research and homework. It's so funny because I feel like I've been really blessed in my life to meet some really incredible individuals that I know are very, educated and smart and incredible, genuine people. But then I learned some of the things that they do and they've been a part of. And I'm like, I have cool friends,
Well, if you call me one of your smartest friends, I really, really appreciate that. But I guess I'll own it. I'll own it for now. But
you can do that.
Yeah, it's been a just journey of learning. Like I used to, on my Instagram bio, for the longest time, it just used to say student of life. Cause I feel like I'm always learning. I'm like, the most important thing that I've recognized over the course of owning this business and just leaving corporate America was like the amount that I don't know is so much more than what I do know. Mm-hmm. And the more that you get to learn, the more that you realize that. So
I'm with you.
Thank you for all of that, but I'll hold it.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love that approach to and that mindset to life. I think the second that we think that we've got things figured out, or that, the second that we're like the smartest in the room, so to speak, is when we stop growing and learning and evolving. And, clearly evolving is like my life's, purpose is to help others do that in their lives, which I can only do from doing myself as well. So I love being around other individuals that I know can, pour into me or have something to offer, that is above and beyond like my current box that I have myself in, right? Which I try to never have myself in a box, but we are limited to our own understanding and perspective. So it's nice to get around other individuals that can really expand that perspective for you. And you're definitely one of those. So
I appreciate that. And it's so true. It was one of my biggest mistakes in the beginning years of business, and we'll probably talk about it, but I had to be the smartest person in the room, and it was a huge hindrance to so much. So
yeah. Okay. We'll get into that. So let's go back a little bit. So we actually know each other from bodybuilding and the competitive days. And I remember training at like Gold's Gym Venice together, and just some of the conversations that we were having around bodybuilding and how that kind of went into how that affects your confidence, like as a competitor, as an athlete, when you go from bodybuilding to lifestyle, and the transitions that you've had to make, and now you're kind of out of the bodybuilding competitive world, and it's what I see more of a lifestyle for you. So could you first just talk to us a little bit about your journey from competitor to this like lifestyle that you've come to love, and a lifestyle that, you are happy and fulfilled and you've seemed very confident in. So talk to me a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, it's a great question. And it wouldn't be complete if I didn't first say that bodybuilding really did save me.
Wow.
In the I say it's my first senior year of college. It took me 5 years to graduate from college. So my first senior year
Oh,
of
I got it.
college, not the best joke, but it took me 5 years to get out of college. Um, I found myself in an extremely dark place. I actually almost committed suicide. I came out of a blackout on the other edge of a guardrail on a bridge
Oh
and
gosh.
almost jumped off. And somebody pulled me back over the bridge. And the weeks and months after that was a huge awakening to holy shit, like I am so far gone. I'm not who I say I am. I'm not who I want to be. And it's causing me to slip into this picture of somebody that I don't even know who this is. So
Mm.
that aside, a very dark place led me to bodybuilding. I left college, the town I was in, to live back in Denver, Colorado, and finish school almost remotely. I would drive up there some days and then work remotely, do school remotely the other days. But when I completely left this massive friend group that I had in college, I became really lonely. And at the time, that was when Instagram and bodybuilding world first started to become a thing. I think it was 2012,
Mm-hmm.
2013. And I was like, you know what? Like, what are these people doing? This seems really interesting to me. I've always been something interested in health and fitness, and I've always been athletic, but had I've never understood a path to take my body to what I thought it was its ultimate potential, from a visual perspective, I guess you could say, in the bodybuilding world. And bodybuilding truly did save me. As I left my friend group and I more or less started over, I found the bodybuilding world, and I found through that world so many amazing people. One of them being yourself,
Mm-hmm.
Emily Duncan. So many people that do represent my company today, and I have great connections with.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in the beginning very important for me to change my life, to have the pursuit of bodybuilding.
Mm-hmm.
But years into it, I competed competitively uh, for almost 5 years. But in the fourth year, when I was starting to have the idea that I wanted to be something outside of an engineer, I started to think about what it would be like to coach other people and to become an entrepreneur and maybe start my own business. And I remember being, I think, 2 to 3 weeks out from a competition. And I was walking into the doors of the company that I was working for. It was Lockheed Martin at the time, which is the biggest defense contractor in the world, but that's neither here nor there. I walked into the doors, there's an elevator and there's a set of stairs, and I worked on the third floor. And was extremely depleted. I carried my food around with my Fitmark bag,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody knew me as like the fit guy. But that morning I had done my hour of fasted cardio. I woke up at 4:30. I got to the office around 6, and I went to the elevator rather than the stairs. And I remember somebody saying, like, you're the fit guy, why aren't you taking the stairs? And I just was like, that's a really good question. I'm so exhausted. I barely have enough energy to get through the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then over the course of the next couple of weeks, I was like, am I actually portraying true health? And I remember taking a selfie and being so shredded and hashtagging health, and then just having this like epiphany of like, I'm not healthy. Like,
Wow.
I thought that like this pursuit of how can we make our bodies like this sculpture, and outwardly, originally so many people thought that that was like the image of health.
Mm-hmm.
But as that happened at work and I was more or less questioned, I was like, huh, like, that guy kind of called me out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw myself in the mirror and recognized that my brain wasn't really functioning. I just had this like facade of what I thought was supposed to be health, and I truly realized that like it actually wasn't healthy. So
Mm-hmm.
that was in my last year of competing. I did one more competition after that experience, and then I started to pursue what I wanted to call true health. I was on this journey to actually figure out what that meant to me. And I was podcasting at the time. And I actually think that now that I think about it, I think you were on my very first podcast, Committed Physiques Radio.
Oh my gosh.
Way back when we were all like competing heavily. I rebranded that podcast to Higher Health because I wanted to redefine what health meant to me. And in that pursuit, I started having so many conversations with guests about what their life actually looked like and what their on a day-to-day basis, and then what they portrayed through social media. And I just saw this dissonance. So that instantly became my mission, was like, how do I bring into alignment the person that I want to be and the person that I say I am, and actually the person that shows up on a day-to-day basis. And so it's been this idea and pursuit of putting into alignment who I say I am and who I actually am. Because when the person I say I am isn't who I actually am and who I actually show up on a day-to-day basis, it creates this dissonance. And for me, that was one of the greatest causes of anxiety, because if you're not who you say you are, it's very easy for somebody to poke a hole in that difference. And of course, you're going to be anxious because you're trying to cover it up on a day-to-day basis. So it was the bodybuilding journey that was like, okay, this isn't actually very healthy. And then I like woke up to some of my own kind of BS, because I thought I was rebranding myself, but I still hadn't actually become who I wanted to become. And so ever since then, late 2016, beginning of 2017, I've been on this pursuit of, what does it actually mean to be healthy? And part of that for me is just truth, like truth as in who I am, who I want to be, what I do on a day-to-day basis. Speaking about cannabis, as you mentioned in the intro, and trying to break a stigma, because it's a huge part of my life. My true, healthy, and fulfilled, most aligned self is in truth and in complete alignment on who I say I am and who I actually am on a day-to-day basis. And since day one, and starting my business and becoming who I am today, since 2016, 2017, it's been trying to bring those two in alignment.
Wow, what a beautiful journey. Thank you so much for going into depth with all of that. And I have to say, as kind of like an outsider, you know, I saw you back then and saw your posts back then, and you've always been incredible, but the way that I feel like your spirit is like shining through now, it's like radiating. Like you can see it in just who you are, how you lead, and how you are with your family, which is just so beautiful. I'm so happy for you that you have a family now, which I know means everything to you. I see all over your Instagram that that's a large part of your why and why you do what you do. So it's been really beautiful to see you come into this. And, you know, something I'd like to mention is that what I see is somebody who just went down their own journey and went down a certain way, thinking that that was it, right? Maybe it was bodybuilding for a certain amount of time, and realizing like, hey, I'm out of alignment in things. I'm not who I say I am. And I think a lot of people can feel really shameful in that, and they can allow that shame to never let them take an action step to make change. And then they just sit in that shame, and they feel so bad about it, when in reality, I think we all have moments in our life where we realize we're out of alignment. We realize that we're not being who we say we are, or we're falling short in some way, or we have to take responsibility for something really hard, or we look in the mirror and we get really aware to some things that aren't so pretty to see. That's part of the human experience. That's part of being a human. Like, welcome to being a human. We all have our own journey. And I think it's important for people to not sit in that shame, but to be able to have that real moment with themselves, to take a real assessment and decide what are the things that you need to change in order to come into alignment. And I love that you mentioned that you were having conversations with people who were realizing that like what they have online and what they have behind closed doors is not the same. Because I feel like there has been, and you can share what your thoughts are on this too, but I really feel like there's been a shift. I feel like, you know, previously there was a lot of portraying this image on social media. And what I'm seeing now is I'm kind of seeing like a mass awakening with people who are craving the real, the genuine, the authentic. And I actually think people are getting better at sniffing out what's not that. Do you feel like you've kind of recognized the same?
100%. And like the truth is, and this is something that comes through for me in I've been uh, invited to speak at several engagements over the last several months, and what I recognize is when I share my mistakes, I feel connected to everybody in the crowd. When I share my downfalls, when I share the
Mm,
things that I've done wrong, I feel more connected to people because
mm,
everybody's, whoever it is that's listening or tuning in, is like, oh, like we're the same. Like
uh-huh.
we're all the same. And you're just committed to failing and being okay with it. And every time you fail, you actually progress and become more of who it is you want to be. And I completely agree with you. And I think that I was actually talking to somebody about this the other day. I can't remember who it was, but I think the way that social media is now becoming more of a platform where it's more video based.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about even like for yourself. So the vlogging of YouTube used to be so popular, and maybe it still is, but I'm not necessarily sure if it is.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that was like vlog, tell a story, show your behind the scenes, and then of course like edit it and put together a compilation of a day or a
Mm-hmm.
week or an experience. And now like with reels and stories and how everything's becoming more video based, you can't you don't edit it as much. It's like, here I am,
Mm-hmm.
here's what I'm doing. And it's really hard to fake that because
Mm-hmm.
it's like live. It's taking away that screen or that veil that used to exist for so
Mm-hmm.
many people, when you could take the perfect picture, have the perfect filter, write the caption, rewrite the caption, and then be like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, maybe this is ready for everybody.
Wow,
But
that's
what's
so
ready for
true.
everybody is your authentic self, right? It's like I turned on the camera and here I am. And I actually post sometimes. I posted a reel a couple of days ago where I fumbled over my words when I was speaking. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to post this because
Yeah,
like that's
that's
who I am,
real.
and I'm more people connect to it. So that's what I've realized, is just connection becomes so much deeper when you say like, I don't have it figured out.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I might own a company that's impacting a lot of people all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
and you impact people all over the world in so many different facets of life because you're committed to evolving, saying this is who I am, but this is who
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be. And
Mm-hmm.
I recognize that these are the things that I need to change. And everybody goes, oh, like it's okay to be okay and to not have it all figured out and to just be normal. And
Yeah.
so I think we went through this phase of social media really frustrating me because I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, like I would see somebody online and then I would meet them and they would either like represent the company or we would just run into each other at a event or something like that. I'm like, damn it, like this person like isn't who they portray online. And
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, that's fine for me. Like I can get past it. But think about all the people that compare themselves to that person, and that person's really just, it's a massive disservice to so
Mm-hmm.
many people because we know that social media is affecting people's mental healths.
Mm-hmm.
But is it because people are comparing themselves to a facade or something that's not actually real? And so
Yeah.
I think it's going in the right direction.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with that. But we've gone through this like clunky phase of like, how do we portray our actual selves online? And maybe we didn't even intend to be for it to be a facade, but sometimes it turned out
Mm.
to be that way.
That's so good. So, question, and this is just my own curiosity coming through, but with, wanting to make sure that you're portraying like everything about who you are, how do you deal with also wanting a private life? Like, are there like private matters that you're like, well, this is for me and my family or me and my close friends? Because what I also see is people that will say you're ingenuine if you don't show everybody all of your cards, and you can't have any
Yeah.
privacy these days, and you have to tell everyone what your hormones are and all the craziest details, which to me just sounds like crazy that people expect this just blatant like access to your life. And clearly I feel a certain way about it, but I'm curious like what your genuine thoughts are on like knowing how much to share, or like do you believe in having private life?
Yeah, I 100% believe in having a private life, and I do share certain aspects of my family life,
Mm-hmm.
but it's more so like, what's the lesson that I would share with my daughter in this situation, rather than like, oh, we're doing this and now we're here
Mm-hmm.
and my daughter's struggling with this or my
Mm-hmm.
wife's struggling with this, because we all have things that happen in our lives that deserve to be private. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's just the most important piece is that the parts that you do share just have to be so authentically you
Mm-hmm.
that your community, your follower base get to know you
Mm-hmm.
because they see your authentic self through whatever piece it is you get to share.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I'd be really interested to ask you that because is that you have a massive community online
Mm-hmm.
and you've I mean, I just have to
Yeah.
reflect the same thing to you. Like I've watched you grow and change so much, and
Mm-hmm.
every time I get to absorb anything from you, I'm honestly inspired, especially
Mm-hmm.
with who you've been over the last 2 years and
Mm-hmm.
what the world has gone through.
Mm-hmm.
And so people get to know like your ideas and opinions and
Mm-hmm.
stance on things. But yeah, how do you respond to that?
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning that. It means a lot to me, especially when a like strong male figure like actually says that they're inspired. That means a lot to me. So thank you.
Yeah.
I definitely really value having a private life. And, I kind of grew up in the online space. I started
Yeah.
vlogging when I was, I don't remember how old, but pretty young. I was in my early 20s and it was just all fun. And so I just kind of shared pretty much everything. Like I shared a lot online, and I learned through experience that I now just have certain boundaries with things. The way that I describe my online presence and who I am and how that translates to who I am in person is that my online presence is 1000% me through and through, authentically me, dot, dot, dot. There's more. There's more good and there's more bad, and I don't think that all of me is for everybody. Actually, like, I just value myself, my good and my bad in a certain way where the closest people to me, my closest friends, my closest family, yes, like they get all of me. But a
Mhm.
ton of random strangers on the internet, I'm going to give them what I think will help their lives. I'm going to be who I am and show aspects of my beliefs, my personality. But do I think I need to tell them every single detail? I just don't. No.
Yeah, that's great. I
Yeah.
think what it is like our online platforms, for me, it's like leadership and business, uh, personal development leadership and like
Mm-hmm.
business ownership
Mm-hmm.
and the lessons that come through in that. Sometimes it might sound more personal than others,
Mm-hmm.
but most of the time it's like who I show up as a CEO of a company,
Mm-hmm.
and am trying to be the best version of that, and that's what I want my platform to be.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody wanted to access more, then I'm open to it, but it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be through like very intentional conversations
Mm-hmm.
and a clear ability for them to show that they're truly interested and care
Mm-hmm.
rather than they're just trying to like pull something out of me to try to try to portray something about me, or like I
Right.
don't know, the internet can be a weird place,
It
but like
can.
it's like I think it's really, it has to be really clear like what our mission and core values are of our online platforms, and then
Mm-hmm.
that's what people get to see. And if you respond
Absolutely.
to somebody saying like my mission through this platform is to share X and I truly value these things
Mm-hmm.
and that's personal to me, uh maybe if we met in person sometime you would actually get to experience more, but like
Totally.
that's the boundary, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. Thank you. I'm going to put that one in my back pocket. That's such a great way to
Yeah.
just phrase it because that's how I am too. Like if I meet someone in person at an expo, I just recently went to an expo, actually went by the Cured booth and said hi to them and got to
Yeah.
meet them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was meeting people in person and they had asked me some questions through DM and I was like, let's just wait until we see each other in person and let's have the conversation. We ended up having like an incredible conversation that DMs wouldn't have even been able to really give the same value or connection, to. So I prefer in person for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to get into Cured. So talk to me about when did the idea start to come forth about Cured? How did it come about and what led you down this journey of starting the business?
Yeah. So as I spoke to having the Higher Health podcast,
Mm-hmm.
I would interview guests. And at the time, I was living in San Diego. I had moved from Colorado and I was still struggling with anxiety. I actually did have a Xanax prescription and I would take it every once in a while. It helped me calm down at night and fall asleep. And while I was podcasting, I was also exploring the legal cannabis market in Southern California. It was
Mm-hmm.
legal in Colorado as well. And, I've always been very interested in the space and have been a user through different times of my life.
Mm-hmm.
But I heard about CBD and I was like, okay, like what is this all about? And I actually had talked to somebody offline of a podcast saying that they had experienced amazing benefits from it themselves. And I was like, yeah, like I actually bought some from the dispensary and I really noticed that it really helped calm me down at night and really helped improve my sleep. And I stopped taking medication. And I was like, wow, this is like really incredible. And I think that this is a component of the overall cannabis world that people don't quite understand and
Mm-hmm.
grasp. And I believe that this might be an avenue to help bring knowledge to the plant in of itself
Mm-hmm.
and the value of nature overall
Mm-hmm.
that could start shifting a stigma.
Mm-hmm.
So growing up, I always remember that, and God bless my mom, I love her so much. But I always remember our medicine cabinet being full of prescriptions. There was always like 5, 6, 7, 8 different bottles. And I was like, what are all these things? And
Mm-hmm.
when I shared the story of becoming depressed in 2012, I was instantly put on antidepressants. And I it did not help me at all.
Wow.
And that's not saying that they don't help some people. They
Mm-hmm.
just weren't helping me. But I grew up around seeing medication all over the place and prescriptions all over the place, and then experienced the instantaneous push of antidepressants when I was depressed in college. And then, fast forward 2 years later when I was in Southern California, started using cannabinoids in a more holistic approach
Mm-hmm.
and had talked to people outside of the online podcast saying that they were doing the same. And I was like, why isn't this conversation being had publicly?
Yeah.
And it was exactly the exact reason was because cannabis
Stigma.
carries such a stigma and people didn't want to be viewed differently
Mm-hmm.
because they said I used some component of cannabis to help calm myself or to help
Mm-hmm.
sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know what? Like, there's something here. I was so frustrated with my career at the time. I had taken a couple steps backwards to take that full time job that I had in Southern California. I was being belittled by my boss,
Mm-hmm.
um, just trying to contribute as much as I possibly could. And one day it just all came to a head. He embarrassed me in front of a bunch of fellow employees. I remember driving home on the 805 and so much traffic, just like so pissed off,
Mm-hmm.
slamming my fist on my steering wheel, being like, what are you doing, dude? Like, you took a couple steps backward. You're so unhappy. You're running this podcast. It's gaining traction.
Mm-hmm.
You're having really cool conversations with people outside of the live podcast, and it's grounded around cannabis and something that's actually really helping you,
Mm-hmm.
but these conversations aren't happening. And so what I realized was I had so much love for the health and fitness space because I had been bodybuilding for years leading up to this. And I also had so much love for an alternative approach to our health and wellness. And I just saw this opportunity. I was like, okay, there's something that I'm really interested in and it's helping me. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
so interested in truly becoming healthy. And I have so many connections in the health and fitness space.
Mm-hmm.
What if I actually combine the two? And what if bringing cannabis to the health and fitness space could rebrand cannabis in a way that people could actually look at it from a perspective of this is somebody who's actually committed to truly being healthy
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and they use cannabis and it doesn't change who they are as a human because they can still have massive pursuits at heart
Mm-hmm.
and be successful at it. And then of course there's like the alcohol industry and we
Yeah.
look at that and we're like, how can that exist and it's so normalized and
Yes, that's the
it
most
doesn't make
frustrating thing
sense.
for me. It's so frustrating to me that you can post on Instagram going out to have a few drinks with some friends and that's okay. And even getting drunk is okay. But yet if you use THC or even CBD or whatever, that's viewed with some sort of stigma, which I believe we're breaking through. I think it's much more accepted than maybe back when you started it, which is a large part of, I'm sure, your brand and your business and your marketing and everything you guys have been doing to help change that stigma. But I agree. I think it's just the most backward way of thinking. And people never stop to analyze. Like, we are saying that this substance, which people die from all the time, of alcohol, from drunk driving, and so many things happen underneath that substance, right? We say that this is okay, but yet this over here is not okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
And like, it was so close to me, the impacts of alcohol, that I said, I need to change this conversation. My cousin was killed in a drunk driving accident.
Wow.
My uncle was killed because he was an alcoholic and he drank himself to death. My grandpa drank himself to death as well. I almost killed myself because of alcohol. So alcohol was like so close to me and ruined literally lives so close to me that I said, I need to be someone that commits their life to changing this narrative and to pursuing something that has actually shown so much benefit to me. But this is a huge uphill battle. And I'm so open to that because I'm not afraid of a challenge. And if you can remember back to the early days of Cured, so I saw that there was this opportunity and I was really interested in the health and fitness space. And one of the first products that we came out with was seasonings for food.
Yes.
So we put CBD in seasonings because I was like, well, the health and fitness space, there was the company Flavor God, and so many people were like, I want my food to taste better. It's bland and I'm eating this chicken every single day. So I was like, okay, well, if we just put CBD in the seasonings, people can spice up their food, but they can also get the calming properties and the anti-inflammatory properties. And it's almost like disguising a cannabis product as a food product. And that's not, our intention hasn't been like disguising it into by like to deceive people. It's been like repackaging and repurposing it to introduce people to cannabis in a different way. So if I were to share what our mission is, I say that we are here to change the future of the cannabis industry and look at cannabis more as a vitamin or a supplement. And we want to brand ourselves in a way that allows us to convey the message that it should be viewed no differently than that. It's something that can be used on a daily basis to improve your health and wellness. And we just have to change that narrative. And that narrative is something that has been around for so long. 5,000 years ago, cannabis was showing up in pharmacopoeia as something that has medicinal benefits. 2,000 years ago, it was showing up. In the late 1800s into the early 1900s, there was this huge push to brand marijuana or cannabis as poison. There was the Poison Control Act, and that continued from the late 1800s into the 1930s. And then in the 1930s, William Randolph Hearst, who was heavily invested in the paper industry and the news industry, was pushing news printed on paper. And the hemp industry actually threatened the paper industry. So that began a massive propaganda campaign to demonize hemp. And hemp and marijuana and cannabis, they're all the same thing. The difference between them is just the cannabinoid concentration in them. So in the 1930s, Reefer Madness came out, and that's when the huge propaganda campaign that we're trying to break out of today began. But you think about 70, 80 years of narrative telling us that cannabis is bad. It's no different than heroin. It is a drug. We grew up in the DARE program, and we've all been conditioned to think a certain way about something that is not what the propaganda has said it is. And we can all sit here and say, oh, narrative, huh? Like, where's narrative coming from today? And if it's existed for 80, 90 years, well, of course we all think the way we do about it, because nobody's ever questioned it, because it's been a massive propaganda campaign since the 1930s. And so we have to change the narrative. We have to rebrand cannabis. And really, that's our mission at Cured.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for that history lesson. It's actually really cool to hear about, the beginnings of all of it. Cause that's always the question that I ask is, where did this generational belief come from, right? Like, we all have this same belief. We have this same, just what's normalized to us. We have this narrative, and it's like, where did this come from? Where's the root of this? And so that kind of actually explains it pretty well. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm glad to hear that there are people that are not scared to be a part of the beginnings of creating this shift. But I do have to ask you, did you receive any kind of like backlash when you started being open about this topic in particular? And if so, what was that like and how did you handle that? Because I know a lot of people fear being able to be open about these things because they fear what other people are going to think. They're going to think that they're a bad person or whatever it might be. So did you experience any of that?
Yeah, I definitely did. And it all started like I just started talking about it openly on social media. And I don't like have a massive following, but like, there would be people that would be viewing what I was posting and viewing my story. And
Mm.
I would just start to share it openly. And the day that I decided to quit my job, I recognized that I'm not sure if there's ever a second option for me because I worked as an engineer and I worked for government contracted companies. So like I left a
Oh.
very like you have to follow the books, you have to
Mm.
follow all the rules, you could get randomly drug tested to then go pursue a cannabis career. So I was like, okay, like here we go, but like I don't have a fallback. I'm not sure if I can be an engineer again that I've worked so hard to be. And the initial pushback was just honestly from my family like,
Mm.
are you sure that you want to do this?
Mhm.
Like, how are you going to pay your bills? What about
Mhm.
your benefits that you have at your job? Like, could you ever go back to that? And I was like, I don't know, but I really just need you to believe in me because I know that there's something here.
Mm.
And the more and more I talked about it, and the more and more I saw people raise their hands behind the door,
Mhm.
I knew that I could, I knew that there was something there. I just didn't know how hard it would be. And
Mhm.
there definitely was pushback. There was pushback from people close to me. There was pushback from people online, like, oh, like this is healthy. And like some parts of like the cannabis industry isn't healthy, aren't
Mhm.
healthy. And that's just like everything.
Mhm.
Um, but in the initial couple months of owning the business, I have to tell you, it came from so many personal areas, but it also just came from a business perspective. Like it was impossible for me to get a bank account. I got shut
Oh,
down by
wow.
PayPal in my third month of
I
business.
remember that.
I lost I lost $30,000 our first Black Friday because our credit card processor just seized all the money. So there was pushback on a
Wow.
personal level from like friends and family and
Mhm.
connection, and like, what are you doing with your career? You worked so hard to become the aerospace engineer, like why would you do this?
Mhm.
But then there was also just pushback from like systems that are crucial to operating a business, like having a bank account and
Yeah.
processing credit cards.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really early for that to happen in your entrepreneurship journey, like 3 months in for that to happen with PayPal and then losing $30,000, especially being that young in your entrepreneur journey. How did you not quit? Like that would make most people quit, you know? So what made you say like, no, I got to keep going?
Yeah. So that was actually right around the time where I was talking about moving home because I was like, I can't actually. I mean, this was when I was in San Diego and then I moved back to Colorado because I was like, I can't actually afford to pay my bills here in San Diego.
Mm.
Like, this isn't sustainable because if anybody knows as you start a business, like the main goal is to keep the business operating and is
Mhm.
not necessarily to pay yourself.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well, I have all these bills. I have to move home. My parents were open to it, but it's kind of funny because there's a through line to how we even started this podcast. As I had that $30,000 stolen from the company, I actually shared that experience with a person that became my very first mentor. We were at a festival here in Colorado called Big Wonderful. It's like a farmers market music festival,
Mhm.
and there was another CBD company right next to us. And like we started talking, they focused on dog products,
Mm.
and I shared with them like what had happened. And I was like, I'm running this company out of my parents' spare bedroom.
Mhm.
I know that I have to move it into actual commercial facility. I basically don't have any money right now because of what just happened.
Mm.
And the girl that was running the company said, I really want to introduce you to Richard. And Richard was one of the guys that was the founder of the company that we were positioned next to. Richard was actually the founder of Breckenridge Brewery, which sold to Anheuser-Busch for $90 million. The
Wow.
first day I met Richard, I told him the story about what had happened. And he asked me, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to keep going. And do you have a closet that I can move my business into in your facility? And he said, yeah, I wanted you in here yesterday. I'm going to take you under my wing. And I found my first mentor by just being completely transparent with what had
Wow.
happened. And he said, I see in you a drive to keep going that I would so love under my wing. And that's how I met my first mentor, was just being fully transparent with what happened, and ended up being taken under the wing of somebody who has built a massive company and exited it. And unfortunately, he has passed away since then. But
Oh, I'm sorry to
it
hear.
allowed me to find my first mentor, like just
Yeah.
being fully transparent with what was going on and how I was struggling. And so I lost track of that, I guess,
Mm.
in the couple years after that. But it gets back to how we started the podcast, is just you have to share what's the mistakes that you've made, the
Mm.
downs, the things that have gone wrong. Somebody's going to hear you and somebody's going to connect with it, and it may very well be somebody that's going to mentor you.
Mm.
So
That's
it was just a commitment. I was like, I have no second option.
yeah, that's so good. And it speaks to what you were sharing earlier, how sharing your failures can actually be something that connects you deeper. Imagine if you had gone into that meeting and been like, yeah, we had a little mistake, but we're all good. We're fine here. And questions, you just straight up asked him if you could have a closet at his facility. Like you just straight up asked.
Yeah, because we walked into his place and I was like I could afford like $300 a month, and I see that closet, like I could probably fit my whole company in that
Stop.
closet. We're actually still in that same building. So I started in a closet there,
Uh-huh.
which was like, I don't know, what was it, maybe 10 by 10, 100 square feet. And
Wow.
we have 6,000 square feet in that facility now. And it's really cool story, but it was just like, I didn't know what to do and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know where to go next. So
Mm-hmm.
I needed guidance,
Mm-hmm.
and mentors come in the most mysterious ways, but it
Mm.
just came through saying, like, I don't know fully what to do next and I need help. And I think we can be so afraid to ask for help because we
Mm-hmm.
think that makes us a lesser of a person, a lesser of
Mm-hmm.
an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
But it really, it's just going to connect you with more people.
Absolutely. And I agree. Mentorship is a huge part of my brand and what I do. And it's what I look for in my own life as well, because the best way to kind of get on the fast track is to find somebody who's been where you want to go and learn as much as you can from them, whether that's from a podcast like this or free content online or someone that you meet in person, or your story is pretty dope too. But I'm a huge believer in mentors because I feel like that's part of why we're here on earth, right? Like we experience something and then we get to kind of, lay our hand out aside and like grab someone else's hand and be like, hey, I know you're struggling. I've been through that. Let me show you a way.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So I want to know, and I think it may have been with something you just shared, but what has been the hardest part of being an entrepreneur and owning your own business?
Mm. Ah, it's the hardest part for me is the best way to explain this is I know that I have an intelligence and an ability to. Andy Frisella talks about this all the time, so maybe this will land correctly.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I have ability to see around the corner and
Mm-hmm.
see what's going to work and what's not going to work. My biggest failure is not owning my intuition and speaking to it.
No
So in the
way.
second year of
Wow.
owning Cured, we were going in 5 different directions. We had our own farm, we had our own manufacturing facility, we had food products, we had supplements, and I, as the leader, could not speak up. I was so afraid of being liked. I
Mm.
was so afraid of not being liked
Mm-hmm.
that I wouldn't speak to my intuition and where I really wanted and viewed this company needed to go. I just couldn't speak up. I was so worried about being liked
Mm.
than, as I've said recently, I was more worried about being liked than executing the bigness of my mission. So I would let things get to me. I would hold resentment because I just didn't know how to speak up.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest failure was not speaking up and not being the leader. The leader has to stand strong and hold the line, as Andy Frisella will say, is like, you have to hold the line.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just setting the example,
Mm-hmm.
it's speaking to what the example and your standards are, and whether people are upholding those standards or they're not upholding those standards. And so many people are so afraid to say, hey, you're not doing it, that they just allow people to continue to stay in their life, whether it's in a business or a friendship or a relationship, and you just build up so much resentment. Over the first 2 years of the business, becoming a multi-million dollar company very, very quickly, we were going in 10 different directions. And we almost went out of business in the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, because I wasn't showing up as the leader and actually holding everybody to the standards that I expected of them, but also, and more importantly, of myself. And I would get so frustrated. I would say, why don't people see what I'm doing? I expected people to understand what to do through osmosis rather than me actually speaking to what I expected. Wow. And that was the biggest failure of myself, was truly at its core was I was more worried about being liked, because if I said, hey, you're not doing it, or you're not in alignment with our values, what would that person then think of me? And if that meant me letting go of them or ending the relationship, then I would hold a bunch of shame because I thought I was bad because I cut somebody out of my life. And I had to completely reframe that and say, that's actually exactly what you're supposed to do. To get the life that you want, you have to speak so clearly to your core values that people can understand where you're coming from, even if they're not in alignment with those core values. And you can actually make decisions to remove people from your life or your business by creating that understanding of, this is either in alignment or it's not in alignment. And the person might not hear you and clearly like listen at the time, but they can look back on the conversation and say, oh, like Joe and I just didn't have an alignment of core values. But for me, until I actually learned that, and it was from Andy, I was a terrible leader because I just didn't speak to what I actually knew needed to happen and actually could see was coming down the pipeline. I was more afraid of not being liked than speaking to my truth.
Yeah. Wow. That's so good. What do you think has helped you become the leader that you are today? Because you said you struggled, you weren't leading properly. So what has been a major shift for you that has really helped you to step into the CEO and leadership position?
Yeah, and I have to attribute this so much to Andy and Ed, who run Arate Syndicate, but it's speaking to the why, speaking to the mission, and owning those core values and being clear on those core values. Simon Sinek wrote a book, Start with Why, and he talks about the how, the what, and the why. And what really makes everything become so much bigger than yourself is the why. It's the mission. It's not the perfect product or the perfect ad or the perfect way to create the new way of marketing or create a funnel. It's why you're doing it. Like, why do you wake up on a day-to-day basis and feel that fire underneath you? And for me, it's because I want people to feel their ultimate best, but it was only through my ability to define what that meant for me and be like, oh, like I feel so good. I feel so fulfilled. Our products help support that. But I want everybody else in this existence and that I come into contact with to also feel that. And that's the mission. And that was what was most important, was recognizing that you have to be clear on your mission, but you have to also get sick of hearing yourself speak to the mission over and over and over and over and over again. We think that we're just repeating ourselves, but the truth is your employees, your team members, your following, your community member, they need to hear it over and over and over again to remind themselves of who you are. I shared this in a recent speaking engagement. I was like, when you're at your funeral, would you rather somebody speak about you saying that person just had so much damn potential, or that person was on a fucking mission and I know exactly what their mission was? And so for me, I recognized that what really mattered was the why and the mission. And I was so stuck in the how for so long. Like, how are we going to make this amount of sales? How are we going to build this system correctly? Who are we going to hire next? Like, people really matter, but it's people that are in alignment with your mission. It's the mission, it's the people, then it's the product, then it's the profit, and then it's making sure your business is operating correctly. But it was just like order of priorities of what really matters. And for so many entrepreneurs in the beginning, you don't even think about that. You're like, how am I going to pay rent next month? Like, I need to sell 10 of these products. And that's all you can think about. And you're so just stuck working in your business rather than working like on your business and seeing from a high level, is the mission going in the correct direction? And I have to attribute that all to mentorship. Andy and Ed, they're bosses at this stuff.
They are.
But they speak to it over and over and over again. It's the mission, it's the why.
What would you say to people that are thinking about having a mentor, maybe being a part of a mentorship group like Arate or another group, but it's a big investment and they're feeling really scared and fearful about it?
Yeah. You will not see the immediate return on investment, but I can guarantee you the return on investment is so much greater than putting it into that paid ad or putting it into that new product or just saying we need to do something for the short term. You might see in the short term that your idea works, but you're just so stuck in yourself and you're not thinking bigger. And so you just have to literally like flip it to, it's an investment in my future self. And you have to find the right person, right? Like you have to find the person that's walked the path that you want to walk. But you have to understand that that's the shortcut. Like every time you go to a new state, what's the first thing that you do to try and figure out where you're going? You pull out your damn phone and you look at the maps. Well, that mentor has the map for you. And you have to understand that they're going to get you there a lot quicker than you would get without asking for help. You might not even ever get there if you don't ask for help. So it's hard to recognize that because mentorship is always a massive investment. You have to understand that if you truly find the right person and they've done what it is you want to do, there's not speculation. Like they're not speculating. They're saying, this is what you should do. This is what I did. This is what you shouldn't do. And they're not speculating because they got where they got somehow. Right. Yeah. So you just have to listen to them and like actually like own what it is they're doing and know that it will work. It's an investment. You have to execute. It's on you to take full responsibility for that. But don't ever hesitate. I would always invest in mentorship over the quick fix, the quick ad, the quick funnel, the quick sale. You're going to see returns tenfold when you invest in yourself.
Yeah, I cannot agree more. And I think it's interesting how we sometimes feel resistant in life to the things that we absolutely should be doing, right? Imagine like sometimes when you're getting ready to go to an event and you're like, man, I really wish I didn't have to go to this event. And then you go and you have the most incredible time, have deep connections with people, or some opportunity arises that would not have happened had you not been there, you know, or like mentorship, right? You're like, man, like I feel resistance. This is a big, you know, investment or time investment, money investment, whatever it is. This is going to be a big responsibility. And then you do it and you're like, why did I even question that once? Like I've had that experience so many times in my life where I look back and I'm like, okay, Emily, remember this next time that you're in this scenario, because you're never mad that you went to the gym. You're never mad that you got a mentor, that you went to the event. Like I've never regretted any of those things, but I find it funny that we have to wrestle with that resistance towards the very thing that is going to like elevate us to the next level.
It's so true. I mean, how about the damn cold plunge? Are you ever excited to get in the cold plunge? Like you're like, oh, I'm so excited. Like I'm really like, this is going to feel really good.
Yeah,
it feels amazing on the other end. But I have to tell you, every damn day I get in the cold plunge, there's so much resistance. Like, but the thing that you want to do the least is the exact thing that you're supposed to do. Because when you start your day or whatever it is with that hardest thing, everything else becomes a little bit more simple, right? Like, but
yeah,
I think that's the biggest thing with the cold plunge for me.
I love that you're a cold plunger as well. I'm like meeting all these cold plunger friends now. We find out, like I was at an athlete thing here at Alpha Land the other weekend, and I met these new, you know, people, and they said cold plunge. I was like, what? My ears perked up a little bit, and then we go off for 30 minutes about our cold plunging experience. But really, I think it's such a practical way to practice these things of feeling resistance, of choosing to surrender to the thing that you can't control, which is the cold, and to find the peace in the middle of the storm, so to speak. And I don't know about you, but for me, I do see it translating it into my everyday life where my reaction to things is just so much less. Like I was never very like reactive, but I just feel like such a different centered peace that I didn't really feel before. Even something silly like the other day, I had my protein shake and I shook it. It's a newbie mistake. Somehow it wasn't screwed all the way on. Like how many times have I made a protein shake
We all still do
and I'm going to
that.
make this mistake,
For
you
sure.
know? And it goes everywhere. And I'm actually, it's funny, I was filming, so I was like vlogging while it was happening, and it happens and the protein shake is all over my legs. And I was like, thank God I have big thighs. It didn't get on my seat. And I was like, I'm pretty sure previous Emily put some napkins in the center console. And I looked and I did. And I was like, perfect. And I just, like wasn't a thing for me. Whereas I feel like those little nuances sometimes can get people emotionally reactive, and let alone the small ones. Think about the big ones in life, right? And what we get to practice on a consistent basis is really surrendering to that moment and finding that peace in the middle of the storm, so that our circumstances, our environment aren't the things that control us. We actually show up and we shift the environment. We shift, the surroundings that we're in. So I love that you're a cold
100%.
puncher.
Yeah. Have you read the book, The Surrender Experiment?
I have not.
I highly recommend it.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's by the same guy, Michael Singer, that wrote The Untethered Soul.
Oh,
But The
yes.
Surrender Experiment, this guy has an incredible story, but all it is he continues to surrender every single situation. He's like, well, I can't control this, but I can control my actions. I can't control the situation. I can control my actions over and over and over again. And he built, well, I'm not even going to give it away. You just need to read the book. But that's what it is. It's like you can control what you can control, and you can control getting into the cold plunge and deciding it, but you can't control the fact that it's going to feel fucking freezing every single day.
Time. Sometimes it feels way colder than others, but I digress.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay, so I do have a lot of listeners who they, deal with anxiety or depression, and I feel like they would really benefit from trying some of your products. So I want to know, first off, just some easy questions. What is CBD? Can you just say it in layman's terms for everybody?
Yeah, great question. So CBD is a cannabinoid. It stands for cannabidiol, and it's one of over 100 cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. Other cannabinoids that you know of are THC, and as you will probably learn, CBN is another cannabinoid, but there's over 100 cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. CBD is one of them. CBD is typically extracted from the hemp plant. The hemp plant and the marijuana plant are both cannabis. The difference between the two is hemp has less than 0.3% THC, and marijuana has greater than 0.3% THC. And marijuana is what you usually purchase in a dispensary. Hemp products, hemp derived CBD, can be purchased online and shipped anywhere in the nation, and that is what Cured sells. CBD is one of those other over 100 cannabinoids, and it's known for its calming properties and anti-inflammatory like properties. So it's really good for recovery, it's really good for calming, and it's not intoxicating, which one might associate with THC, but it is psychoactive. So psychoactive means that it does have effects in the brain and body, but it doesn't have that intoxicating effect that one might associate with THC. I think that that's probably explains it pretty well.
That was so well said. So then I guess I wanted to ask you, what would be your top two products that you would recommend somebody start if they feel like they're experiencing anxiety, maybe depression, overwhelm? What are some, top two products you would suggest for them?
Yeah. So I would say that for us, one of the biggest things that people struggle, I shouldn't even say for us, for all humans, if you're a human, you probably have struggled with sleep at some point in your life.
Yeah.
And if not, I am very jealous of you. But most people can't sleep because they can't calm their mind. And since CBD is very calming, one of the products that is great to start with is just one of the CBD oils that come in tincture form. You can shake it up. You have it right there in your hand. So that's actually CBN, which is more of the nighttime oil, but CBD can be used for nighttime because it's very calming. CBN is actually more sedating. So think CBN calm, or sorry, think CBD calm, CBN more sedating and more for sleep. You can use
Mm-hmm.
CBD at any time of day. It
Right.
just helps calm you down. And then CBN is more for nighttime, although some people do use CBD at night because most people can't fall asleep because their mind's just racing a million miles an hour. So
Yeah.
sleep is the foundation of our overall health.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not standing on a solid foundation of a good night's sleep, most things are going to be affected, including your appetite, your mood, how you react to
Mm-hmm.
people, so many different
Metabolism,
things,
weight loss,
metabolism,
hunger,
everything. Yeah.
literally
Hormones,
everything.
everything.
Yeah.
So most people would go to cured products to improve their sleep, and you can use CBD or you can use CBN. We have both of them. CBN is actually better for sleep because it's more on the sedating end,
Mm-hmm.
but you can use CBD any time of day. And some people, if they're just starting out and they wanted to go for an any time of day, I would just go for the Cbd tincture,
Mm-hmm.
which is great for before podcasts, for
Mm-hmm.
calming, before you're speaking, before anything that might necessarily make you nervous. You
Mm-hmm.
put it underneath your tongue, you hold it for 30 to 60 seconds, and you'll feel the onset in like 15 to 20 minutes, which is quicker than taking like a capsule.
Mm-hmm.
We do have all of these exact same products that we're mentioning in capsule form.
Mm-hmm.
It just takes 30 to 45 minutes to feel the onset versus 15 to 20 with the sublingual dropper because it goes into your system quicker.
Yeah. It's funny, I was going to say those same products. My number one would probably be the nighttime hemp oil, the raw CBN. And I remember the first time that I took this, I felt like I was sleeping like not pretty well, but like then I took this and I understood like deep restful sleep. And I was like, there's such a difference between laying down at night and your eyes being shut and waking up in the morning and then getting like a deep restful sleep. And I just felt so much better the next day. So it's been really nice to incorporate that. And the pure CBD, that's the one I'll just take that throughout the day. And it's been so nice to incorporate that because, podcasting and all of these things that require so much. We're in this like wired society, right? Where it's like, okay, I'm making an Instagram post, I'm responding to 30 people, and then I have 20 in my actual text messages, and I'm on a call, and then I'm reviewing notes, and I'm trying to let the dogs out, and I can be like all over the place, right? And I'm sure that everyone listening feels the same. So it's been nice to be able to incorporate this and just kind of like have more of like a present, calm and centered feeling. And that's kind of how I would describe it.
That's a really good way to say it.
Yeah, just bringing you to presence and bringing you to that like calm center. So I also have been using this product. It's the Hemp Infused Roll-On Balm because we mentioned or we talked about before the show how I've been doing like Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu. And randomly, I'm like, why does my elbow hurt, or why is my shoulder hurting from these like arm bars and, triangles?
Greg Anderson. It's
yeah.
Greg Anderson's
fault.
fault.
Oh, no, this is my product, not his. No, I'm kidding. I love Greg Anderson. But yeah, has been really amazing to be able to use that for just all the muscle aches and pains. And actually, I don't know if this is like a thing, but I like to just sniff it because it kind of just clears
got a nice like
out.
shea and cocoa butter smell to it. That was actually formulated by a clinical herbalist out of Boulder, Colorado, which several of our other products have been formulated by as well. And that's always been our approach at Cured is it's not like we throw the kitchen sink at a product. We very intentionally craft every single one of our products based on our core value of nature. Like we believe in nature and the power of nature, and we're not just going to throw the kitchen sink into a product. We approached a clinical herbalist who's been crucial in formulating all of our products. And some of our products have taken nearly a year to formulate, but they've been done so in that way to make sure that they truly, truly work. And, if anybody was introduced to the CBD industry in 2018 when it blew up and there was gas station CBD and people were getting honestly conned by so many companies, one, that was a massive disservice by so many of those companies. And two, I'm sorry if that was you and you tried it and it didn't work, because the truth is these products really do work. They just have to be coming from a, full and integrity source. And of course, when you do that, the company makes less money, but then you have returning customers because it actually works. And so that's always been our approach is like, it has to work. If it doesn't work, then like, why are we doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. And, for all of my listeners that are listening, you guys know that I only partner with the top brand of their industry in every single industry. Like I only work with people who provide the highest quality in their respective fields, which is why I'm really happy to announce that Cured Nutrition and I are actually partnering together on the Evolve with Emily show, which means if you guys are interested in trying these, you can actually get 20% off just by going to www.curednutrition.com/Emily Hayden and using coupon code, my full name, Emily Hayden, at checkout. Again, that's CURED nutrition.com/Emily Hayden, and it gets you 20% off. So I'm really excited to be doing this because, like I said, I have mentioned to you guys a few episodes ago that I have not taken one single partnership for the Evolve with Emily show, and I've been doing this since December of 2018. So this was a decision that was not made lightly. I have taken a lot of time to make this decision, and it's just a very natural, aligned partnership. I really align with the core values of Cured. I've known Joe for a very long time. I was one of the first people to try the spices, and you guys actually used to have the cookie dough. Remember the cookie dough? Man, I wish that would come back. I loved that.
I told you some heartaches that we had around that product on a different call.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It's been cool you've been able to see the whole thing, and I just have to reflect, we're honored to be working with you.
Thank you. Yeah, that means a lot. So, and I'm really excited for you guys, the listeners, to get to try these. So do me a favor. If you guys pick up a Cured product, just DM me and let me know how it's working for you. And if you guys have any questions about it, I'd love to answer that as well. I know, like he mentioned, some of you guys may have seen the rise and the blow up of the CBD industry. And maybe you had previously had an experience that made you have a certain viewpoint of this industry in general, kind of like how people are like, oh, church sucks, all church people are bad kind of thing, right? It's like, no, like the church itself or God himself or, CBD itself is not bad, but humans and people may have done things to give you a bad experience. So I hope that you will keep an open mind and allow yourself to have a good experience from a brand that does hold themselves to the highest standards when it comes to quality and when it comes to being truthful and honest about what is actually inside of the product. So I just wanted you guys to know, because I know that you guys do trust me at this point, that this is a brand that you can trust. So I encourage you to go and have your own experience, and don't forget to share with me how it goes for you. So we are going to end the show there. Joe, thank you so much for being on today. It was such a good call. I feel like we could probably talk forever about like the ends of the earth. Yeah, we just
need to get together in person soon.
I would love that. So, okay, guys, you know the drill. All of Joe's information will be down below. So make sure to check him out. Give him a follow. I actually have really enjoyed following him on Instagram, especially as of late. He's been doing a lot of reels that are leadership focused, mentorship focused, and I always get something really incredible out of them. So if you guys like the podcast, you would enjoy watching his reels, his stories, and such. So give him a follow on there. And without further ado, we will see you guys in the next episode of Evolve with Emily. Bye, guys.